The delicate scent of roses still lingered on her hands, even though she'd washed them 3 times since closing the shop for the last time. Rose Martinez, 69, sat in the third row of the Tonight Show studio, unconsciously arranging and rearranging the small silk flowers on her vintage brooch, a nervous habit she'd developed over 40 years of creating perfect arrangements for life's most important moments. Tomorrow, the keys to Rose's garden would be handed over to new owners, marking the end of 4 decades during which Rose had been the keeper of Brooklyn's emotions, the woman who translated feelings into flowers for thousands of customers celebrating love, mourning loss, and marking every milestone in between. The tiny flower shop on Maple Street had been Rose's world since 1984, when she'd bought it with her late husband Miguel after immigrating from Puerto Rico. Together, they'd built more than a business. They'd created a sanctuary where people came not just to buy flowers, but to share their joys and sorrows with someone who understood that the right bouquet could say what words could not. What Rose didn't know was that her retirement had sparked a neighborhood-wide effort to honor the woman who had been part of every significant moment in their lives. Former customers had been sharing stories about the florist who remembered every anniversary, who stayed open late for emergency bouquets, who somehow always knew exactly which flowers would comfort a grieving heart or celebrate a new beginning. Rose had started the shop knowing nothing about the flower business beyond her love of gardening, but she'd learned that floristry was really about understanding people, their hopes, their heartaches, their need to express what they couldn't always put into words. Over 4 decades, she'd arranged flowers for first dates and golden anniversaries, proms and graduations, births and funerals, apologies and celebrations. She'd become the unofficial historian of her neighborhood's love stories. She knew which couples had their first dance to Moon River because they came back every year for anniversary roses. She knew which families were struggling because they'd asked for the simplest arrangements but treasured them like precious gifts. She knew which customers needed extra time to talk through their grief because choosing funeral flowers was their first step in saying goodbye. The Tonight Show tickets had been a surprise gift from her daughter Carmen, who worked as a nurse and had always admired how her mother comforted people during their most vulnerable moments. "Mommy, you spent 40 years taking care of everyone else's emotions," Carmen had said. "Let someone entertain you for a change." It was a Tuesday night taping in April, and Jimmy was in good spirits after interviewing a popular actress about her new romantic comedy. During his commercial break interaction with the audience, his attention was drawn to Rose by the elegant way she carried herself and the obvious care she'd taken with her appearance, qualities that spoke of someone accustomed to being part of other people's special occasion. "Ma'am, it's a beautiful brooch," Jimmy called out, noticing the delicate flower pin on Rose's navy dress. Rose touched the brooch self-consciously. "Thank you. It was a gift from my late husband. He said flowers should be with me always, even when I'm not at the shop." "You work with flowers?" "I did. I owned a flower shop for 40 years, Rose's Garden in Brooklyn. I just retired yesterday." Her voice carried a mixture of pride and melancholy, the way someone speaks about the end of a life's work. A warm murmur went through the nearby audience members. There was something immediately appealing about Rose's gentle manner and obvious connection to her craft. 40 years as a florist? You must have been part of thousands of special occasions. Rose's face lit up with genuine warmth. "Oh, yes, thousands and thousands. Weddings, funerals, births, graduations, anniversaries, apologies. Flowers are the language of the heart. When people don't know what to say, flowers say it for them." "That's beautiful. What's been your favorite part of the work?" "Being trusted with people's most important moments," Rose said without hesitation. "When someone comes to you for their wedding flowers, or to say goodbye to a loved one, or to celebrate a new baby, they're sharing something precious. It's been an honor to help them express their feelings." Jimmy was struck by the way Rose talked about her work, with such reverence and genuine care for others. "It sounds like you've done more than just arrange flowers." Well, when people are choosing flowers for special occasions, they often need someone to listen. A young man picking out flowers for his first proposal needs encouragement. A woman choosing arrangements for her mother's funeral needs comfort. A couple planning their wedding needs someone who understands that every detail matters because love matters. The sincerity in Rose's voice was unmistakable. This wasn't someone who had simply sold flowers. This was someone who had served as a counselor, confidant, and guardian of precious memories. Jimmy made a decision that would transform the evening. Rose, I have a feeling there are some incredible stories behind those 40 years. Would you mind sharing some of them with us? Rose looked uncertain. Oh, I don't know if people want to hear about flower shop stories. Trust me, Jimmy said gently. Stories about love and loss and celebration, those are the stories that matter most. Come on down here. As Rose made her way to the stage, the applause began, a respectful recognition for a lifetime dedicated to helping others mark their most meaningful moments. When she reached the stage, Jimmy helped her up the steps and guided her to a comfortable chair. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy announced to the studio, this is Rose Martinez. For 40 years, she's been helping Brooklyn express its emotions through flowers. Rose, tell us about some of the people whose lives you've been part of. Rose settled into the chair, and suddenly she was in her element. Sharing stories was something she'd done with customers every day for 4 decades. Oh my goodness, where do I start? There's the Thompson family. I did flowers for the grandmother's funeral 35 years ago, then the daughter's wedding, then the granddaughter's quinceanera. Just last month, 3 generations of celebrations and sorrows, all connected by flowers and memories. Rose's voice grew stronger as she continued. Then there's Mr. Peterson. Every Friday for 22 years, he bought a single yellow rose for his wife. Even after she developed Alzheimer's and didn't recognize him anymore, he kept bringing her that flower every week. He said maybe she didn't remember him, but somewhere in her heart, she remembered being loved. What about weddings? You must have done thousands of wedding arrangements. Oh, yes, and everyone was special. But I remember Maria Gonzalez. She could only afford the simplest bouquet for her wedding, just daisies and baby's breath. But when she saw what I'd created, she cried because she said it was more beautiful than anything she dreamed of. That bouquet cost $12, but it represented every hope she had for her marriage. The audience was completely engaged, drawn into Rose's warm storytelling about the intersection of flowers and human emotion. Tell us about the more difficult times, Jimmy prompted gently. Rose's expression grew more thoughtful. Funeral flowers are the hardest, but also the most important. People are grieving, confused, trying to find a way to honor someone they've lost. I remember Mrs. Kim, who wanted white lilies for her teenage son's funeral. She kept apologizing for crying while we talked, and I told her, Mija, tears water the flowers we choose with love. Your son would be honored by every tear. Jimmy reached into his jacket and pulled out his business card. Rose, I want you to have this first, not because I want anything from you, but because 40 years of caring for people deserves recognition. But Jimmy had prepared more than just his card. Rose, we reached out to some of your customers before tonight. We wanted to hear their stories about you. What do you mean? Jimmy pulled out a tablet. Listen to this. From Jennifer Walsh. Rose created my wedding bouquet in 1995. When my husband died suddenly last year, I went back to her shop, heartbroken and lost. She helped me choose flowers for his funeral that told the story of our love. White roses, like my wedding bouquet, mixed with his favorite sunflowers. She held my hands while I cried and said, the flowers remember your love story, Mija. They'll help others remember it too. Rose's eyes filled with tears. Jennifer, such a sweet girl. Her husband was so proud of their love. Jimmy continued reading. From David Chen. Rose taught my 5-year-old daughter how to arrange flowers while I planned my mother's funeral. She kept my little girl busy and happy during the worst day of our lives, showing her how to make heaven bouquets for Grandma. 20 years later, my daughter is a florist because Rose showed her that flowers can heal hearts. Oh, my, Rose whispered, overwhelmed by hearing how her kindness had shaped someone's entire life path. There's more. From the Rodriguez family, Rose donated all the flowers for our daughter's quinceanera when we couldn't afford them after my husband's injury. She said every girl deserves to feel like a princess on her special day. Our daughter's now a doctor, and she still sends Rose flowers every year on the anniversary of that quinceanera. The studio was completely silent, captivated by these testimonials to Rose's generosity. Jimmy stood and addressed the audience directly. This woman has spent 40 years proving that flowers are more than decoration. They're expressions of the human heart. She's been the curator of Brooklyn's emotions, helping people celebrate love and honor memory. He turned back to Rose. Your customers wanted to do something special for your retirement. They've created the Rose Martinez Memorial Garden at Maple Street Park, a community space where people can plant flowers in honor of loved ones, continuing the legacy of healing you've created. Rose gasped, bringing her hand to her mouth. A garden for the community? Yes, but there's more. The Brooklyn Historical Society wants to record your stories, all the love stories, the family histories, the moments you've witnessed through flowers. They want to preserve the human history you've been part of. Jimmy had one final surprise. And Rose, because you've spent 40 years helping people express their feelings, we wanted to express ours. The studio lights dimmed slightly, and from backstage, Carmen appeared, carrying the most elaborate bouquet Rose had ever seen. Dozens of roses in every color, mixed with flowers from around the world. Mammy, Carmen said, joining them on stage, this bouquet has flowers from every country where people have been inspired by your story. It represents all the love you've shared, all the hearts you've healed, all the memories you've helped create. Rose was openly crying now, overwhelmed by the recognition and the beauty of the arrangement. I don't know what to say, she whispered, holding the massive bouquet. Jimmy sat back down beside her. Rose, you said flowers are the language of the heart. Well, this is our way of saying that your heart has been speaking love to this community for 40 years. As they helped Rose back to her seat, she stopped and looked out at the audience one more time. Thank you. But I want everyone to know flowers don't create the love, they just help us share it. The love was always there in every customer who trusted me with their special moments. I was just blessed to be part of their stories. The episode that aired became one of the most touching Tonight Show segments of the year, sparking conversations about the small businesses that hold communities together and the people who dedicate their lives to marking life's precious moments. Rose's final week at the shop was celebrated with a neighborhood festival where hundreds of former customers brought flowers to create a massive community bouquet. The Rose Martinez Memorial Garden became a reality within 6 months, funded by donations from grateful families whose lives she'd touched. Rose spent her retirement teaching flower arranging to senior citizens and volunteering at hospices, discovering that leaving the flower shop didn't mean leaving her calling. It meant expanding it to bring beauty to even more places where it was needed. At 71, Rose still believes that every emotion deserves the perfect flower, still volunteers regularly, and still carries a small silk rose in her purse. A reminder that beauty has the power to heal, celebrate, and connect us to the deepest truths of the human heart. Because sometimes the most important businesses aren't the ones that make the most money, they're the ones that make the most memories. And sometimes the most valuable service isn't measured in profits, but in the number of hearts that have been comforted, celebrations that have been enhanced, and love stories that have been honored with the perfect arrangement of petals and leaves that somehow say exactly what words cannot. Road trick.